All right, on today's episode of Locked On Avalanche, it was the first preseason game for the Avs, and I don't think there was ever an NHL preseason game more welcome than the Avalanche Wild on Sunday night to help us forget about whatever that was that the Denver Broncos put out there. New episode, Locked On Avalanche. Comment.
You're Locked On Avalanche, your daily podcast on the Colorado Avalanche. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Locked On Avalanche podcast. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Chris Maselli. With me, as always, Mr. Shaggy Von Doom, Kyle Sullivan. Thank you for tuning in and making it your first listen of the day. That is always appreciated. Make sure to follow us on our social media outlets, LOPN_Avalanche on Twitter, X, Locked On Avalanche on Instagram. Questions, comments, concerns, and opinions, lockedonavalanche@gmail.com. And follow us on our YouTube channel over on YouTube. Hit subscribe, get notified when a new show goes live. All right, so you can see our rundown over there. Pretty much going to revolve around the Avs preseason game and make that a bigger deal than it really needs to be, clearly, because that's what you do when it's the first preseason game and you haven't had hockey for months. You kind of look at this and say, like, hey, let's pull as much as we can out of here. Not that it's meaningless, it's very meaningful for the team, but clearly, you know, the loss doesn't matter, stuff like that. You're looking at individuals, how they did, who needs to do a little bit better next time they get the opportunity, and just you're playing kind of coach and you're playing kind of GM right now from the outside looking in. So we'll start there. And yeah, like I said in the opening, if you're coming to us from, you know, if you're like a big Bronco fan and you're wanting to just forget about them, I don't mean to bring them up for you to not forget about them. But if this is some sort of like respite for you to maybe get just to listen to something else rather than whatever that was, because there's a lot of pain going on in Bronco Nation right now. And I feel for all of us right now.
Yeah, I watched that game with my 10-year-old daughter who just got into football this year. Ironically enough, her team was the Dolphins.
Yeah.
It was a terrible, terrible day.
Oh, wow. So that's a long road ahead. But we will focus on one of the good teams in the state of Colorado, and clearly that's Colorado Avalanche, and their first preseason game up against the Minnesota Wild. Pretty much went as expected for a preseason game. You're going to get a lot of mistakes. You're going to get a lot, you know, not to say a lot, but a good amount of good plays and impressive plays. And, you know, but you're going to get some sloppiness. And that's clearly what you saw in this game.
Yeah. And when it comes to preseason, well, like you said it best, like we're all playing GM here and coach, because these are the names. I mean, this is not your star-studded roster. A lot of these names are brand new to everyone. A lot of these names are brand new to like the Avalanche organization. You haven't seen these names. You're having to do your research, but it's your first look at that. Like we talked about, the everydayers know, like that Ross Colton, Tatar, Miles Wood line. Like, what's the potential there? What's it going to look like? And you're not really caring about the wins and losses. It's who's this player and how are they going to fit in when they come up, when the inevitable Avalanche injury happens?
Well, yeah, I mean, you're looking at this for a number of reasons, and you touched on like a couple of them. Yeah, you're looking at like, okay, what's potentially next? Who's maybe like down the line, maybe not right away, but you know, or again, and like you said, if an injury pops up, who could have the potential to step up and slot in for a couple games if needed? You mentioned the Colton, Tatar, and Miles Wood line. That I feel is giving some Avalanche fans a lot of hope for this middle six / bottom six, because they were your top line in this game. And yeah, like you said, like this is you know, your first preseason game is for a lot of the like unknowns, and they are unknowns for the Avalanche. So they put them out there because like that is going to be your third line. So in a game like this, where it's a lot of AHL guys, that's clearly your top line. And while you expect there's still like a getting to know you phase between all of these players. It's especially true for them, but you saw glimpses of what you could get for this year with the Avs in that third line. You have to love Miles Wood and his work ethic.
Yeah.
That guy's got a motor and he just keeps going. And then, there was a one where Colton's coming up the right side and Colton's got the puck and Wood is just making a beeline right down the slot and he feeds him. Nothing. Well, I won't say nothing came of it. A penalty came of it. He drew a penalty on it. So I think you're going to see that. That is going to be a very difficult line for other teams' third line to handle. And you just saw little bits of it. But once they start gelling and start really kind of like getting into the flow of a season, that's a line that the Avalanche did not have last year, clearly.
Yeah, and honestly, seeing that line in action against Minnesota, I didn't misspeak. The Minnesota hate is beginning now because the chippiness is there. Is like it's
a little bit,
it happens. But when you see that Colton, Tatar, and Wood line out there, it feels like those old videos. You remember when Peter Forsberg used to dress up like as an old guy and he'd go out there and just kind of get into like beer league hockey, and he's clearly outperforming everybody else. Like Minnesota had like a same constructed roster. A lot of guys really trying to make their way up to, and the Avalanche had PTOs on this roster as well. And when you saw that line out there, they were automatic. Like they were communicating with unspoken word. They knew where everybody was. They were performing at such a high level and operating on the power play. And I like seeing them cycle. Like that's something you can have a lot of confidence in.
Yeah. You mentioned the power play and there was a lot of them in this game. And that's where like the sloppiness comes into play, right? Like that's where maybe I don't want to say it's like conditioning or anything like that, but guys are kind of taking some like silly and stupid penalties. And I think Minnesota had 8. Let me see. I'm double checking on that. I'm pretty sure Minnesota was on the power play 8 times. Here we go. I was gonna say in the preseason you don't get the best of stats on these websites because they kind of throw in the towel here, but there was a lot. Trust me, and that's just stuff like that needs it. But I was gonna say stuff like that needs to get like buttoned up, and it does during the regular season. But you don't want to see that from some of these guys because sometimes it could be just they're trying too hard for guys that are like trying to make this team. And sometimes that's where mistakes come into play. And Sam Alinsky was one of those guys. We'll get to him a little bit later. I don't want to get into him right now. But
you're talking about the Martin Kaut effect. You remember last preseason?
I guess to some effect, yeah.
It was that like playing at 120 miles an hour, taking dumb penalties, but also looking good at times. And then you're like, wow, he's really trying. And then that's it. You make the team, and then that's where you lose it. You expect like, and honestly, when it came to that Miles Wood, like stick to the face, like Avalanche fans are like, oh no, here we go again. We don't even get to see the Miles Wood experiment before it even happens because he's already injured. When he was down on the ice on all fours, I was like, great. This is just what you need. You kind of want to see that toned down a little bit, and you probably expect that as well, like tonight against Vegas, that things are a little bit more buttoned up. It's going to be a different looking roster, I imagine, but you expect it to be a little bit tighter. But yeah, that was some goonery to prove that they're tough and they can be NHL roster ready, but that's not the way you do it anymore.
One thing I loved was Jack Johnson taking the opportunity to really use this preseason game as like his playground. And I don't mean that he was like running circles around everybody, but he was just out there like hot dogging it. Like he's got a spot, right? Like he's not fighting for, we know he's going to be starting the season like on the defensive end, third pairing. And he's not out there to hurt his team in doing that. It's just like the opportunity presented itself for him to make some impressive stick moves, and he did. And you were like, whoa, where? And I saw an interview with him after the game, and he was like, yeah, he goes, I'm not going to do that stuff in a regular season game. We have the playmakers to go do that. They don't need me to, and he just had a nice little shimmy move, a nice deke. There was another one where he was going up against 2 defenders. It was a 1-on-2 in favor of Minnesota. And he kind of like pulled the puck between the defender's legs. You're like, who is this guy? I'm waiting for the Scooby-Doo mask to come off, but it was fun. He used it as just, I've been around long enough. I know what preseason is. I'll have some fun with it. And it was entertaining to know that Jack Johnson's got some moves in him.
Seeing Jack Johnson out there being Connor McDavid-esque, like deking the puck on the heels of that Broncos game, I had to go get a thermometer and check and make sure I didn't have a fever and that I wasn't having a fever dream or something crazy was going on with this sports day. It was crazy to see, but yet it was also fun at the same time. Like, okay, he's having fun. Like we talked about that Colton line. They're getting out there, getting a feel for everything. Jack Johnson, he knows. That's a name that everybody knows. He's out there to provide some like seniority, but if he gets the opportunity, he's going to have fun because what's it going to hurt?
Right. Exactly. He knows what this is. So that was fun to see. All right, let's get into kind of some individuals again, or maybe who helped themselves and who hurt themselves. We'll do that next. But first, we're going to hear from Jace Medical. And everyone should be empowered to care for themselves and their loved ones during the unexpected. That's why Jace Medical offers the Jace Case. And the Jace Case provides 5 life-saving antibiotics for emergency use and gives you a peace of mind so that you are not just hoping that you have access to medication in an emergency. Jace Medical makes sure you have the medication in hand. It is very, very simple. They handle everything from the online evaluation to licensed pharmacy medication delivery and ongoing consultation and care. So don't get caught unprepared. Get $20 off on these life-saving antibiotics today from Jace Medical by using the promo code Locked On at checkout at jacemedical.com. That's JASE medical.com. All right, so as far as the scoring goes for the Avalanche, you had Kiviranta getting the first goal of the preseason. That's kind of a little bit poetic, I guess, looking at his history against the Avalanche. You had Bolby with a goal, and then Tufte had one very, very late at the end. Maybe I think it was like 9 seconds or something like that to give you the final score of 4-3. Overall, guys who really played well, Tufte's at the top of my list.
Yeah.
We heard a lot over the weekend that the Avalanche had conversations with Curtis McDermott about focusing in the offseason on playing the forward role this year. That does not mean he is slotted into a spot on the forward position. And he's gonna have to fight for it just like anybody else. But I think there are many different better options that the Avalanche have ahead of Curtis McDermott for that forward position. And if you ask me, I think how Riley Tufte played in this game is going to make it very difficult for Jared Bednar to ignore him. If he could, like, I don't get too mixed up in training camp. Training camp is so short, and I give a lot of credit to the people like the reporters and stuff who are there and trying to like pull a lot of information out and post it. I'm not that guy that just like falls over like all of these like little bits of information that come out and like it's just. But you know where I'm going with this. I'm trying to be very nice about it, but I don't care. That's what I'm trying. I look forward to like the preseason games and stuff like that. I don't care so much about practice.
I was anticipating Eric Johnson coming out in this preseason game in a Sabres jersey after all the stuff I've seen about training camp. Yeah,
I love the Colorado Avalanche, everything about them. As far as like the training camp practices go, I don't care. There's nothing going on there, if you ask me. But you did hear that Riley Tufte was having some good practices, and he had a really good game, I thought, against Minnesota. And if he keeps playing like that, Jared Bednar is going to have some decisions to make. He's 8'12".
Yeah,
you know, like he's impossible to miss out there. He's got good speed for his size. He's got great hands for his size. He's always involved in the play. I like what he could give to this team. I really do.
Yeah, and Riley Tufte looked really good. He was one of those names like, well, we're doing all this stuff in the off season. about making lines and putting things together. When you put this Avalanche roster together, that's a name that's always floating out there. Him and Olofsson, like those are names that you're just kind of you float. It's there, and he looked really, really good, and he kept building that goal late. You felt like it was coming.
Yeah,
like the entire game he was building towards it. Contrary to like Kiviranta, I'm surprised that he's still working on this PTO with everything he brought in. I know everybody talks about that game 7, like he knocked the Avalanche out in the bubble. That's about it when it comes to Kiviranta and his production. And for him to come out in this preseason game and score the first goal, and you saw if you were watching on Altitude, you saw his interview. Like he was excited about what he could bring to this team and possibly be rejuvenation for his career. It kind of tailed off after that. And I was like, oh, like this is a good spot for you. And I think it would be a good storyline to continue like the Kiviranta story, but it kind of tailed off and Tufte just kept building and building and building. And that goal at the end, you're like, you could see him really excited to kind of like check it off. Like, yes, everything I was trying to put together in this game paid off and I could build on this in the next game.
Yeah, he worked right up to the end. And you love to see that anyway, even though the games were pretty much over. He kept battling. And where's this? I think he had 4 shots. Yeah. It looks like he had 4 shots on goal, but plus minus of he's +2. So I don't know. I just really liked his game. I like the size that he has. And hey, like he could be one of those guys where if someone like if Andrew Cogliano's not 100%, even if he's like 75, 80%, you just say, hang out for another week or 2 and we'll slot him in there. And I don't feel like you lose that much, but no, I mean, Kiviranta, I think he played well. But there was like, you got that goal early and then it was just kind of like slow moving, like sluggish for everybody, for quite a while. But I think he's got a shot to like, he'll get a contract and maybe just camp out in the AHL for a little while. But I think he has a chance to do that. We'll see.
I kind of anticipated seeing a little bit more out of him. I was kind of disappointed, especially like in the second period, just kind of going ghost mode. I was like, oh, I'm accustomed to this when it comes to the Avalanche, but you're on a PTO, my friend. You got to step it up just a little bit more, but we'll see how it goes. But yeah, Riley Tufte's making it hard to factor him out.
Jussi Annunen, I thought played very well. And I think that's what you want to see out of him with all of the questions about who's going to be the backup goalie right now. And I think that gives the Avalanche the way that he played. Again, like we don't know. I'm sure the Avalanche know how long, or they have an idea how long Frankie's going to be out. So if it's something where it's just like, hey, if it's short term and we can get that out of him for a few games here and there, we don't need to go out and sign somebody new and bring someone in short term, whatever the case may be. We could rely on him potentially. Again, I know this is not the competition that he's going to face, and that is still going to be a question mark. But as far as kind of like being in control, like, and he didn't really have any like flailing saves where he was out of position. I don't want to put too many eggs in his basket because again, this is like first preseason game, but there was nothing there where I'm like, what the heck is he doing? Like I never said that really once, but maybe he's taken maybe a step forward a little bit here.
Well, according to Jared Bednar, that is your backup goalie. Like, get used to it.
Well, yeah, I mean, he's going to say that right now. I took that with a grain of salt. I believe he's saying that truthfully. But if an opportunity presents itself where they can go get somebody that they feel good about, they're going to do that. But yeah, I think there is truth to him being the backup right now.
Like right here, right now, season starts tomorrow. If Gary Bettman wakes up and says, you know what, this preseason stuff is silly. Let's just
for the
stop.
birds. Yeah.
After you saw what you saw out of Eustace, 15 saves, and they were solid. Like they were nothing where you're like, oh, this is going to be a nightmare. If this is our backup, we're going to be in trouble. I felt pretty good. I felt pretty confident what he could do and like string that together. And you also had to keep in mind that's not NHL defense in front of him.
Right. Well, and the goal he gave up was just I don't want to say complete defensive breakdown, but I don't know who the player was for the Avs that kind of went sliding for some reason. When was it Johnson? I didn't think it was Johnson.
I think it was Jack Johnson on that one. He was kind of ghosting and behind that play.
I'll have to rewatch the replay, but like whoever it was, like I don't know why you're sliding there. Like you're in position. Like it wasn't a break. The player
maybe that was Johnson on the home goal. But no,
I don't know. Whoever it was, shouldn't have been sliding there, because now you have a defender that is just non-existent because now he's down on the ice. And it was kind of an easy goal for Minnesota.
No, you're sliding.
And I really put that on him.
You're sliding in that position because you're trying to make a name for yourself and say, "Look, I go all out. I put my body on the line," and you're trying to fight. That's what that is. That's minor league mentality.
Yeah, it was not a good defensive play. So, but overall, I thought he was good. I thought he was really good. Trying to think of the top line. I thought was good. I thought Callahan Burke played better as the game went on. He had some shifts early where he just looked so out of place. And it was just what I liked about it was he would come back and you got to put that behind you. And it was a bad shift. Bad shifts are going to happen. And it didn't seem like it really carried over for the entirety of the game. He didn't do anything that like stood out. That's like, oh my God. But there were a couple times where I just watched him and like somebody chipped him and he kind of just like went down. And when he got back up, he just didn't seem right again. But the next shift he came out and just had a solid shift. Didn't do anything spectacular. And he's a guy that I like, and he's played very well for them in the AHL. So, and he got some opportunity last year. He might get some opportunity this year. What I liked out of it was like he just didn't let how kind of non-existent and kind of out of some shifts that he was really just kind of just throw his hands up in the air. It's like, well, today's not my day. He kept battling, I thought, and I thought he got better as the game went on.
Yeah, he got tossed around a little bit early.
He did. Like, he really did.
He was getting manned out of plays, and he was being out physicaled. Yeah, if that's even a phrase. But he didn't let that bother him, and he didn't let that be the narrative throughout the game. No. And he really tightened up and adjusted his game. Like literally, you could see the adjustment that he made, which is something that you will check as a positive, because if you can adjust your game, you're going to be doing just fine, because Alex Newhook did not. And he no longer plays with the team. So if you can make adjustments mid-game, that's a good sign.
All right. Anybody that hurt themselves, we're going to discuss that next. But first, we're going to hear from FanDuel. And basically, this entire ad read should just be don't bet the Broncos. And I think everybody be on the safe side there. But we'll say right now, you can snap into action with the NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place just a $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is super easy to use, and there's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over, unders, and so much more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to kick off the NFL season. And next week, the Broncos and the Chicago Bears battle it out. I don't know what that spread is going to. I think it's going to be pie. I think the spread is going to be pie.
It's going to be a tie.
FanDuel is the official partner of the NFL. All right. So in these sloppy games for preseason, you always want to say, like, yeah, there's some guys that didn't play their best. But, this is not the end-all, be-all. It's the first preseason game. Everybody's getting out there, getting their legs. Maybe, hopefully, they get another opportunity. But maybe some glaring plays or moments from some players. For me, I was absolutely looking forward to Sam Alinsky. And overall, like, I thought you can see the talent is there. And you can see like he can quarterback, in offensive rush, and he's got that capability. Some silly penalties on his part, though. And that's the part. But were they silly, or were they just hard-working, hard-fought penalties? because, something like the last one that was the double minor. Yeah, he's just going to raise a stick up and he missed the stick and nails the guy in the face, draws blood. There's a double minor. So do you chalk that up to guys just playing hard and it was just an accident, a mistake? Or does he need to be a little bit more in control of that? And is this going back to what we were saying in the beginning, guys pressing a little bit too much and drawing penalties? He drew 3 penalties in this game. And I know that's not what anybody wants to see, including Jared Bednar. So what do you think? Oh, you're hang on.
Now, we just got done talking about Callahan Burke and adjusting his game throughout the game.
Mm-hmm.
Sam Malinsky, he needed to adjust his game. When he got that first penalty early on, I was like, oh no, bud. No. This is not how you want to make your altitude television debut in 2023 in the penalty box. And then he bookended it with that penalty at the end of the game. And that he had another one right in the middle. And you're just like, come on, this is not the game you need to have. You could do so much more talking with putting something up on the stat sheet instead of goofy penalties, kind of like 50-50 penalties, and then a double minor like that. Granted, you bailed yourself out, but my word, don't do a double minor. And then you're sitting in the box and like after 1, adjust. After 2, really adjust. After 3, we have a problem.
Well, so the first one was the old Cale Makar penalty where the Avalanche were on the power play, bringing the puck into the zone, and he's on the blue line, and a defender's kind of runs into him, but he doesn't really. It was an interference penalty. It's one of those kind of like, I'm sure the fan base doesn't like it, and I'm sure the fan base of the Wild were like, yeah, it's a penalty all the time. It's one of those. I would lean towards more of that, the way that he kind of didn't really try to get out of the way too much was a penalty. So again, that's one that's like, it could go either way, lean more towards a penalty. The second one was a high stick. High stick's a high stick.
Mm-hmm.
What are you going to do? And then the third one, like I said, it was another high stick where he's trying to, clear the defender's stick, and he just missed and got him in the face. So there's those things, with the exception of the first one. I think the other two is just like, you got to be a little bit more in control, and for you to draw those two high sticking penalties back to back is just not what, that you're not helping your cause. We know you're not really going to make the team right off out of the get-go. And long-term, I still think you're fine. It's not going to define whether they need to call you up or not. But you saw the look on Jared Bednar's face after the second high sticking, and I couldn't tell if it was, what is this kid doing?
Yeah.
Or if it's like, man, 2 high stickings in a row. Like, what are the chances?
Yeah, and it bothered me, but it's something that that's going to be talked about in the locker room and addressed going forward. And like another player that really hurt themselves. You ready for this one? Did anybody remember that Brad Hunt was on the ice?
Only because he took a couple shots that were like, oh, there's the Brad Hunt that I remember from last year. He took a couple of those slappers that were like, God, you forget that he's got a really nice shot.
He was out there for 16 minutes.
Yeah. Which is kind of on the low end, I'm going to say, for because most of these guys that's right around the average.
Yeah,
I mean,
but when we're talking about hurting themselves, you're kind of hurting the legend of Brad Hunt that he was for a little bit last year.
Yeah.
Like, he was out there, and honestly, when it comes to like defense, it would have been great to make your name out there because nobody really was defensively in that preseason game.
Mm-hmm.
But Brad Hunt, like, he had some NHL time, and he was like the fun interview, and he was, the flavor of the week before he went back down to Loveland. I would have loved to see him do something, and it was very, very invisible showing from Brad Hunt, and I was kind of disappointed in that.
He might be in the Jack Johnson world where he's just like, I'm just going to go about my business here.
I'll give him that.
So not just make sure I don't get injured, go out there, skate around, and I'll be fine. One other guy I want to mention, Brandon, I think it's Cousin, Cousin. I can't pronounce his name properly. Forgive me for that. I thought he looked pretty good. I thought he was kind of entertaining. Had some nice moves down close. He had a nifty move, really in tight to the goalie, where he was kind of like behind him, but came around in front and tried to turn around and roof it, and he didn't. But it was an opportunity. So I thought he looked okay, and I think he's on a PTO too, which is not going to really go anywhere. But just for yesterday, I didn't think he hurt them at all. I thought he was okay. Yeah, and then everybody else was just kind of ho-humming it. Really, it's kind of what you expect for preseason hockey.
And the last thing of who hurt themselves, my emotions were hurt. I thought I would be okay, but seeing another 91 in a Colorado Avalanche sweater this early, that bothered me.
Yes. Everybody check in on Kyle to make sure he's doing okay, because there is a number 91 being worn in burgundy and blue, and the name on the back is not Kadri.
I was shooketh.
Yes, you were. I did. I sent you a text.
Yeah.
See if you're okay.
I was not cool. I was not cool with it. I had popcorn in my mouth. I was like, wait. And then I realized what year it was, and then I sat back down.
I don't know if you did see his Kadri. He had a pretty solid goal, and he played in their first preseason game. Go look it up if you haven't seen it yet. It's pretty nice.
Oh, I have.
Yeah, it's nice. All right, that's going to wrap it up for today, everybody. Tomorrow, we have a special guest. We reached out to the Gio Collins, who is an esports personality. And she had a really good video up on her YouTube channel, because she's an NHL fan, on the NHL, how they can grow the game. And they can do so by adopting some of the methods that the esports world has used. So her and I had a really good conversation, and that'll be out on Tuesday. So make sure to check in for that. All right, but that'll wrap it up for today. So thank you for tuning in, making it your first listen of the day. Always appreciated. For Mr. Shaggy Von Doom, Kyle Sullivan, I'm Chris Maselli. This is the Locked On Avalanche podcast. Hockey season is here. See you guys tomorrow.